Welcome to the Numbers Don't Tell Stories show. Each week, we like to give our listeners ideas on how to evaluate numbers through story. Our desire is to entertain you and provide you with useful insight. Welcome back to the latest episode of Numbers Don't Tell Stories. This is Tom Etchison. We're doing a special 10th episode here today for our podcast, and I'm doing it solo today. We're going to do kind of just a quick, different type approach to the podcast, and resuming our normal, little bit longer form podcast here in the weeks to come. But I thought I'd share with our audience something that I found really interesting. Found a interesting news item from Morning Brew. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary that happened to match the 10th episode of ours and our podcast. And what I found interesting was that the Morning Brew folks compared 2015 to 2025. And they did a bunch of numbers, and as you would always, commonly do if you were doing a comparison of, a 10-year period. And so I thought I'd take those numbers and break those down quickly, and then kind of go back and look at what I think the story is here. And I find it kind of interesting. There is a kind of very interesting thread that runs through all of these numbers. So as you look at this, you can see the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, Bitcoin, gold, all have done exceptionally well in the last 10 years. The S&P 500, Dow Jones, 2 times better, gold 2 times better, Bitcoin nearly 365 times better than it was in 2015, which that would have been a remarkable investment. The folks at Morning Brew also showed if you had invested $100 in some of the well-known stocks, where would those numbers land? And you have represented here a bunch of what are now known as the Magic 7 companies: Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, and you can see where those numbers would have gone in the last 10 years, as you would expect. They also listed out some things about entertainment. So the highest grossing film in 2020 or 2015 was Star Wars, which really, not surprising, that group of movies has historically done really well, but over $2 billion in their ticket sales. And in 2025, the in just 7 months of the year, it's only at $1.9 billion for the best movie so far. And that's really interesting when you think about $2 billion in 2015. That was a huge number. And for 2025, a movie not to have grossed that already is kind of interesting. And then you look at the most watched TV shows. 2015, The Big Bang Theory, is CBS's hit for a long time. And Squid Game is the hit for 2025. And then some notable tech things, the typical stuff of the market cap stuff that we've talked about before. 2015, Apple, only $725 billion. You look at that now and the several trillion in valuation that it has today as part of that Magic 7 that I alluded to earlier. And then NVIDIA on this list at nearly $4 trillion in valuation, with the boom in AI and all the data center activity and so on. And then Netflix is interesting here. Their subscribers have dramatically increased. You think about the spread of high-speed internet and all those things has exploded in the last 10 years, along with streaming applications. And then you look at Apple Pay users and Gmail users, both exploding in their usage. There's some interesting stuff that they listed about life in general, which I thought was kind of interesting. The one statistic that they listed in the last 10 years that has stayed the same is the federal minimum wage. Fascinating numbers there. And then the average cost of a U.S. home is nearly double. And when you think about that, people talk about the affordability crisis of real estate and all the rest of that stuff. Here it is on full display, but it also represents a very good investment opportunity. Obviously, if you're buying and letting time pass, it's definitely a good investment, just like the other stuff that we showed, the other numbers. And then this one is a close second to almost being identical, the most popular baby names. And this really surprised me that those would stay the same, but the boy's name Noah has remained popular over the last 10 years, but girl names have changed from Emma to Olivia. And then average cost of a gallon of gas, 79-cent difference, 32% increase. Everyone would expect that. We hear about gas and eggs all the time and the price increases. And then this is a fascinating one. Blockbuster locations. In 2015, there were 22 left. And now there's only one in Bend, Oregon, and it's almost like a tourist, destination. And there's really, this is where I would like to take this and dig in, because this is where I think the commonality or the story comes into play with these numbers. If you look at Blockbuster back in 2000, they had the opportunity to buy Netflix for $50 million, and they passed. Now, the Blockbuster story in and of itself would be a fascinating deep dive for this podcast, and we'll maybe file that away. But they passed. And now if you go back and look at the impact of Netflix on a lot of these numbers over the last 10 years, you look at the number of subscribers has been huge, but look at their impact on TV. They are the group that created the Squid Game. They're creating content, and Blockbuster tried that back in the day, and they were trying to do the same things that Netflix was doing, and had they bought it, it might have been a very different story. But you look at their impact on movie proceeds and the ticket sales, they definitely impact that. Fewer people go to the movies overall, and that is reflected in this AMC Entertainment. If you look at that, the value of that $100 invested, you would have lost money. And that is kind of the Netflix effect on these last 10 years. You can see the impact of that on the overall, just whether it's markets, tech, and life in general. It's kind of that common through line and that common story. And that's the power of numbers, and that's the power and the fun of taking these numbers and doing a little deeper dive and looking into them and seeing, oh, okay, what can I make of this, and what kind of story can I build with it? So that's it for today. Thanks for playing along. It's great to have you with us. If you're liking what you see, please give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. You've reached the end of the show. We ask that if you found this useful, that you please tell a friend. Leave us a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. And if you're watching us via YouTube, please like and subscribe.